You looking for my sandwich? My wife made it for me, okay? All right, Kubota B7500. I'm gonna show you how to rebuild a actual end on this front axle. This is probably one of the worst brakes I've seen in a long time. Let's see if I can show you some damage here. Let's see, we've got some, it's kind of hard to show in the pictures here, but none of this should do that, you know? So here's what I did. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna prop this thing up. I use the loader to get it off the ground so this spins. Of course, we're not laying under the tractor, so don't do that. If you are, please put jack stands either in the center, on the loader mast, really anywhere to prevent yourself from getting crushed. We're not doing that. We're gonna be outside of the tractor, so there's no issue there with safety. First thing you're gonna do, 17 mil socket on an impact. We're gonna take all of these guys off and we can get access to that knuckle. As you can see, I got the wheel off. There is a huge gap right here that is obviously not supposed to be there, and you can see it's off center. So this is about as bad as it gets for a failure. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take this knuckle off. Instead of busting this tie rod, I'm gonna take 1, 2, 3 off, and that'll give us clearance there. And then we're probably just gonna take these 4 off the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that'll drop off. I'll probably have to take a hammer and beat this guy and pop it before we go too far, because I don't want this knuckle hanging connected to this and I can't get it off. So we're gonna pull the cotter pin actually out of this guy first. Okay, the trick here is once I pulled the cotter pin out, I undid the nut to where it was just at the end of the stud, and then I gave it a quick smack with the hammer. And the reason I do what I just did there, I'll tell you. If you pull this guy out of here, ouch, fuck, that hurt. What I'm doing is I'm putting the nut to where it's just at the tip, so that when I hit it, the threads are not protruding out of the nut. And so when I smack it, the nut actually takes all the force, and therefore you won't damage that. In most cases, you can smack right here very hard, once or twice, bam, bam, and it should pop out. That's the other way to do it. But I just wanted to show you that. I'm gonna put this guy back so nobody loses it. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this knuckle off, like I said. So let's find out, is this a 17? It is also a 17. Pretty much everything on this thing is a 17. I'm gonna take my gun, crack this guy loose. And one of the things you'll wanna notice is obviously the weight of the tire pulls this guy up, so it closes this gap. One of the things you could do is shove this guy back down, and I'll put like a hammer or something in there real quick. Probably like such. I'll actually use the handle. I'm gonna use the handle like this, and that gives me some leverage to pull it down. And while that, what that does is it gives me clearance. Take this guy. All right, so here is a beautiful thing. So we have, these were 17. This was also a 14, if I am correct. So I got that off. And funny, as you notice that this thing's on the ground, it's not supposed to. This is actually supposed to have a knuckle right here, and I'm supposed to pull this front cover and take the snap ring off, and this stays on there, but it actually broke off, which is crazy. I've never seen that happen before. So this is supposed to be a neck with a spindle, and then all this knuckle goes on, and then you put a snap ring, and that's what holds this whole thing together. So this is off. I actually pulled that bolt because it was sitting here, and I pulled that bolt and the whole thing dropped, which I should have caught that or thought about that. I actually had my knee under it, but it just kind of hit my knee and went off. So a little spillage here. But next up, we're going to take this to the shop and tear this open, and I'm going to show you what it is and what's broken. And it looks like this knuckle neck piece is what's going to be replaced. I want to point out that these are 17s, and this tool makes life so much easier on equipment. This guy a little bit of a yank. Look at that. I got one bolt left. Sometimes people don't realize this, but it's not easy to put this thing on here and just pull the trigger, because if the bolt's tight, it won't go anywhere, right? Sometimes what you could do though is you can kind of give it a spin and drop kick it. Except it's hard to do it one-handed, so I just busted my knuckle on that bolt head, but I don't know if I could show you how to do it correctly with only one hand. Let's go like this. Okay. Except this battery keeps falling off. fucking dick. So in that case, that one would not have worked, but in most cases, it'll work like that. So we're gonna pull this last bolt out, like that. Pull this knuckle off. So there you go. There's our 4. And this guy, I'm probably gonna have to grab a hammer and tap on it. Give her some smacks and she comes right out. And there it is. So you can see the damage there. Now we got to go home and look at some part diagrams. And here we are. We are in the garage now, back at the shop. So here is the the horizontal piece that bolts to the axle tube. And this should have a long stub on it, and with a snap ring right here, and that would go into this guy, and you'd reach in through the front. But it's broken off, and it's sitting right there. This is one of the few times I've ever seen this happen. So it's quite interesting. Okay, so here we are. It's quite dirty. What I'll end up doing is I'm going to take it all apart and then clean everything. So first step you're going to do, I had this laying upside down to try drain this oil out of here. You can also take this guy off at the bottom. That is I think it's a 14. That's a 15. This is a 14. This is a 14. Yep. So you're going to take this guy out and come on now. Anyway, we're going to take this guy out. There you go. We still got some oil in it. We're going to take that out, drain it, and then I'm going to take all the front bolts out, which I think those are also 14. Yep. And then it should just split right apart. There is a seam right here. You could put a pry bar and tap it open. Probably a rubber mallet on this guy would also separate it. So let's go do that. So I got those bolts out. I got it drained, and I spun I took the bolts out. That slid right apart. So you got your 2 halves. You've got your face, and you've got your, what I call your main hub assembly. And one of the things you'll notice is I can grab this shaft and it clicks a lot. So that means that lower bearing is bad. I can also see that these splines are chewed up because when this is crooked and you're running it, you can see that the gear that it rides on is actually kind of crooked in there. And this bearing is locked up, but it might be because that bearing in there is stuck, which you take the snap ring off, that bearing slides out, all the guts fall out the front. This guy, on the other hand, by the way, in the front of this guy, when these 2 halves come together, this bearing sits right in here, and there's a shim in there, and that just kind of preloads the bearing so that doesn't walk in and out. Anyway, so just reminder for that. There's your drain plug. What you're going to do here is there's a snap ring right there. You take that snap ring off, and this whole spindle assembly will come out. Obviously, because this is trashed, it broke, it trashed this seal. So we will, I'm going to take it apart and inspect this and see if these splines have a taper to them, or if they were actually ground down. If they're ground down, I have to replace the shaft. If not, if it fits tight, then I won't replace that. But so that's where I'm at with this so far. Let me grab snap ring pliers and take this apart, and we'll finish that, and then we can look at that guy. Although nothing is damaged on this guy. This is beautiful. This spins freely. This spins freely. So there may not be a reason to take that end apart. So I think most of your damage is up on here, but I may take this guy apart anyway and do the seals just in case. It's probably actually what I will do, is do that too. Okay. So once you get that top seal out, which what I ended up doing was I took that snap ring out, and then I kind of tapped at a 45-degree angle through the face of this thing, which I should probably show you here. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip this over. I took the snap ring off the bottom, and then I kind of came up at a 45-degree angle and tapped on this guy with a pry bar, and I got it to walk out, and it popped the top seal out with it, which is right there. Then I took that, the snap ring was already off. Then what I did was I kind of came through the top here now that I could see that bearing. And the only way to get this thing out really is with a slide hammer on at least 2 points. So as you can see there, I have 2 points. This is an outside spreader. And I'm gonna slide this out real quick. Slid that guy out with the slide hammer. If you look down in there, there's another snap ring for the lower bearing. All these bearings are clicking. So the top one, that middle one, and then the bottom one under that shaft. So I'm gonna pull all of them. That one's called a blind bearing puller. That one will be kind of fun. Normally, a lot of the models have like a 4-bolt cover on the bottom. You take that off, the bearing falls at the bottom, and then you can just drive everything up. Not in this case, unfortunately. Tricky part here. So this lower bearing that we were talking about, which is behind this guy, right? So what I had to do is I had to modify the puller. I had to take the whole thing apart, feed one leg in, and try get it around under that bearing, but not interfere with that guy. That shaft actually had to pull straight up and out of the lower bearing. And then I kind of had to tip it around kind of to let some space for that to come in sideways, and then I'd rotate it into place. And then I fed another one in and rotated it into place, and it looked like that. Put it all together, slam, bam, she's out. Now I just got to work on that lower bearing. Let's see here. Actually, I have one more leg that's already off the tool. I'm going to see if this will come in underneath. And it looks like I will have to grind the corners off of this guy to make it fit. Unfortunately, which I don't want to do, but as the saying goes, you got to do what you got to do. So we'll slide that out. This housing will get cleaned. I'll order those parts. It'll be ready. And then next up would be showing you how that goes. Oh my. Okay, so what I did is I took one of the feet off of my puller. And as you can see, I ground the backside to make it skinnier. And then I ground the tip to make it shorter. And now it goes in kind of just right in here like this, if this will focus. And let's go like that. There you go. Oh my God, damn iPhones. Anyway, so this goes in, it slides right under the bearing, and then I'm gonna rig up the tool. Just give it a yanking, she'll be out. So I got that, it worked exactly like I said. I got the hook in there, I hooked it up to the slide hammer and yanked her right out. And you can see a bunch of metal dust in the bottom in there, which is probably why it was clicking. If you have a blind bearing puller attachment for your slide hammer, it's like a 2-second job. In my case, it was a lot longer than that, but oh well, here we are. So I'm gonna set this guy down here, gonna get that all clean and scrubbed, and then next up is this guy. First, we're gonna start with getting a puller on here and pop that bearing, slide that gear off. There's probably another snap ring, and then the cover will slide right off, and then you have a bearing and a seal. So, onto that. Okay, so 3-jaw puller. This slide hammer attachment used to be my tool for the night, but 3-jaw, pull the bearing. We're gonna toss that to the side and that'll get replaced. My bad. Pull that, so swam, slides right off. Normally it just slides on and off relatively easy, but for some reason this is stuck, so it's kind of a pain. I'm just gonna slide that guy off. Check for clearance wash or shim, I don't. Then we have, actually, I'm glad I took it apart because look at that. That bearing is hosed. Then you have this two-piece clam. 1, 2. This guy pops right out. And let's see if I do it one-handed. Okay, I'm gonna actually switch this guy to here. Put this guy right here. And I'm probably going to give this cover some love taps to separate that bearing. Here, 1 second. Okay, one little tap on the tip of the shaft like that, and this whole thing came out. And then this guy just came out in pieces. So there you go. There you go. Then you have a seal. We're just going to tap that out real quick with a little hammer. And that's it. So I'll clean this guy, press a new seal, drop a new bearing, slide it on the hub. Make sure that this doesn't have any damage, which I don't think it does. This sealing surface has to be smooth and clean, which it is. So we're just gonna brake clean this whole thing off. Like I said, we'll put a seal on. We'll press the bearing in, which actually just sits in there nicely, nice and snug. Actually, I don't think it's too snug. And then we'll set this guy on there, put the half ring on. I like those. And then we'll slide that guy on, and then we will just tap the new bearing on, and we're done. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this. Scrape all this RTV off, clean all this sand and holy smokes out of here, and go from there. Thanks, guys. Okay, so for this guy, what we're gonna do is it's just pretty much gonna be this snap ring, bearing comes out, and the gear comes out. So let me see if I can't do this on camera for you. External snap ring goes like this. Oopsie-doopsie. This stuff's always tricky to do kind of one-handed, but I think it's possible. Okay, that's gonna come right out. Oh, you bastard, come on. So, there you go. Okay, so snap ring. Shaft, snap ring. This guy slides right out, if I think so correctly. This guy's probably going to take a little, oh, there you go. So I just shoved my pinky in there. There is a shim behind the snap ring, so got to remember that. Then I'm going to take this guy and just kind of yank her out like that. This guy is beat up, but I've seen worse. So if there's no cracks in it, then we'll probably save it, probably reuse it. The bearing clicks though. It doesn't spin freely. It's not spinning. You see that? So we'll replace that. That guy's pretty well trashed. We're going to have to buy a new one of those. This guy's going to drop. He's actually rammed in there. He is stuck. So what I'll do is I'm going to grab this guy, for example, and give it a beating. Collateral damage. Anyway, okay, not that. This guy is going to come out hopefully this way. Yep, it comes out like that. Bearing comes out. That guy's trashed. And yeah, so we'll save the bolts, save the stud. If this comes out, I might just order a new one. If this one doesn't come out nicely. This gear is trashed. We will replace that. We will replace this bearing. I might just replace that since we're already in there, although there's plenty of usable meat, and I could probably save the customer $150 by not buying that part, but we will see. All right, now time to clean up. All right, so now that we're in the house, on my laptop, I'm going to show you what to do for parts. So in this case, we're going to go to Messix.com. It's great for Kubotas. We're going to type in B7500 because that's what this is. Then we're going to say choose by diagram, search by diagram. And then we are going to go to front axle. First place we're going to go is to bevel gear case. You have different subsections. And what we will do is, like I said, bevel gear case first. If you look at the diagram, sometimes they don't always show you things very well, but in this case we have number 10, and then we got to remember that stud I was talking about, locating pins, number 20 and number 30. So we're going to go over here. We're going to go add 1 to cart. Come on. Add 1 to cart. And add 1 to cart. So this is, sometimes they'll say quantity of 2 because you have both sides of the axle, the left and the right. Number 10, if you notice here, it says number 10 and number 10. So they're interchangeable, which is good. You got to watch for that. Next, we're going to go to the internal workings. We're going to go to front axle case. Yep, there you go. And the way you look at this is going to be left and right. Sometimes they have a directional arrow, which this one does not. It also says old parts over there, so that might be a different part number. These are just the cases, no internals, so we are going to skip this one. We're going to go to front G105. So sometimes what you can do is go to axle frame, for example, and you can just click the next button until you get the diagram that you want. There you go. This is what we want. So this section is the axle tube, which we don't need. And then if you notice, this is 130, this is 130. So the guts, bearing is a bearing, doesn't matter which side it's on. So it's not a left bearing or a right bearing, unless they're different size. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna choose one side here, and we're gonna say, we know we need to replace number 100, so let's go find that. And we're just gonna go in order of the diagram so we don't misplace stuff, right? So we're gonna go here and we're gonna say number 100 is a bevel gear, yikes, 170. Then we're gonna go to 110 and we're gonna get a bearing, okay? Then we're gonna go number 10, let's go back to the top. We're gonna go number 10. Number 20. 50 is a snap ring, we don't need that. Number 30, we need that. And then that bottom bearing is another 130. So if I remember correctly, nope, okay, so 110, 10, 20, 30, 40, 130. That should be everything there. And then number 60 was also trashed. So we need number 60 and the 80. So we're gonna order number 80 bearing. And then we're gonna order number 60, which is another bevel gear, right? Wow. So, and then we're not done. We're gonna go forward one more. There you go. This is what we need. So now we're gonna do the hub right here. We're gonna go from the outside in. So we got our seal, which is number 70. Then we're gonna do, number 90 was a shim, we can reuse that. We're gonna do the bearing, which is number 40. Then those are good, and then we got that outside bearing, which is a number 80. And so now, whoop, number 50, my bad. Number 50, like this, spindle bearing. There you go. So now we have everything from, we got all directions. We got the vertical up and down. We've got the hub face where you bolt the wheel to, which is right here. And then we've got all the parts, the seal, the bearing, the shim we're saving, those clips we're saving, that bearing, that shim's good. And then it's RTV for the cover. And then everything else we've already put in the basket. So unfortunately for this guy, this will be $814 plus tax and shipping. It's a lot of parts, but if you mess up your tractor, you don't have a choice. So Anyway, this is what we got, A14. That's how you find parts. Now, let's say, just if you're curious, let's say you wanted to go to the engine, right? So we're going to go here and let's go engine, right? Oops. Engine. And then we're going to do select diagram. We're going to go crankcase, right? So as you can see, if we zoom out a little bit, we have all the different things that you could possibly need. So we got like oil pan, we've got cylinder head, we've got gear case. You can kind of see you can find just about anything you want. You just have to sometimes know what section to look in. But sometimes the formatting is not working right. But anyway, that's all I wanted to show you. Now when we get the parts in, I'll show you putting it all together. Now that we have all these parts in, first thing I recommend doing is laying out all the parts that you got. Obviously, as you can see, we have our new spindle, or our new spindle end. We have our O-ring that goes there. We have our pin that goes there. We'll swap the bolts over to there. Then we have our internal parts here. We have our new bevel gear piece, which goes on there. That actually gets pressed into a new bearing. I ordered two, and I need to look at the parts diagram to make sure where that second bearing goes. Maybe I might have just accidentally ordered two. Replacement, 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 right? And you can see the two, the bigger one and the smaller one, bigger one, smaller one. Two-piece seal, this seal, and I think actually one of those bearings is actually going to go on here. But yeah, I just kind of lay it all out. We're going to go through and clean everything, and start reassembling. So maybe probably the first thing I'll do is I'll do it in sections. So I'll do this section right here, which will be, put everything in onto here, the pin, the O-ring, and then swap these parts over. Because the bearings are clicking and this is all damaged, I just ended up getting two new pieces. I'll press them together, slide it in, put the bearings in, make it nice and easy. If you remember when I showed you on the computer about how to track your part diagrams through Messics, you can go back to that part diagram or watch earlier parts of this video to see how this came apart. If you lay everything out in the order you take them apart, should make it pretty easy to put it back together. But I understand that there's lots of things going on here and you don't want to misplace anything. But just look at your parts diagram on Messics and just click on the part number in the picture, and that'll tell you what the number is on the bearing, and then it'll make it pretty easy to not fuck it up. So that's where I'd start. Okay, you got that spindle down. Flip this guy over, slid it on. I drop a shim in there. Then this is that other 6206 bearing that I was talking about earlier. We actually have to set this cover down onto the spindle, and then, or not spindle, but the hub piece. Then we hammer this guy in, and we kind of just tap it back and forth until it sits flush in the case. Then you have this bottom groove that's open right here, and you're going to take these guys, these half circles, and you just clean them off. Whoa. Drop this guy right in there, right in the groove. And then this guy, when it goes on, it'll actually captivate them. That's why that works. We take another one. We take this guy. We clean it, right? And then we're just going to get this guy on this side. And now we are good to wipe this guy down. And you see that groove right there, that recess is actually going to go over that guy. So we're going to clean this guy off. So I got this thing all cleaned off. It's all brake cleaned, scrubbed with a brush, that kind of stuff. Tried to make sure that the sealing surface right here for the new seal is clean. All the debris that's settled in the bottom is cleaned out. It's looking all good. One of the things I want to say about this design that I don't like is this pocket is not removable. If you remember from when we were trying to take the bearings out, one, it's a bit, kind of a pain to get the bearings out of this pocket right here, which is this guy on the bottom of the shaft. That's like a big problem. But if you get sand, dirt, water, metal flakes, metal dust, anything that in here, it settles to the bottom, right? Well, now this is a blender blending up all that sand, dirt, crap, right? And there's no way to exit it. There's no way to clear that out because there's no cover here. Whereas over time, you could unbolt the 4-bolt cover on some of the other Kubotas, pop it off, let it drain all the oil out and flush out, clean the cover off, and then put it all back together. But you can't with this. So that's something I don't like about this design. But, you know, I'm not a Kubota engineer. I just get paid to fix people's broken stuff and bad designs. So next up, we are going to go top to bottom. We're going to do this bottom one first. This guy's going to get dropped in, which is a 06304. This is going to get dropped in. I will put it in and then hammer it down from the top. Then I will do the, you got to think about it like a cone, right? So the next one's going to be a little bit bigger, but smaller than the top one. So it's going to be this one and then this one, right? And that's going to be the 06909. Then you're going to have the 06910. And then you're going to hammer this seal in. What we're going to have to remember, though, is, what we'll do is we will put this bearing in. We can put these guys in. Then we will drop this guy into here, right? And then we will put this knuckle on and mesh it with this gear on top of this shaft like this. And then when that guy's in there, we're going to slide this snap ring in. So what we got to do is remember that we have to put this snap ring on here like this and leave it on there when we put all of this together in here. Because once you get this guy in and you start putting stuff together, the snap ring may not be big enough to fit down the center of the bearings. And you don't want to get stuck there. Now, and also, if you put the big bearings in and then you tried to put the shaft in, does this go over? Let's see. It does not. It does not fit. It fits on this one just barely. So if I put this one in, if I put, this is the top one anyway. If I put this bearing in, then I put this bearing in, I can't get this shaft in, which means I have to remove and extract this bearing before I can move forward, which is kind of a pain. And then guess what? You have this all together and you forgot the snap ring. Well, you got to pull this guy, you got to extract that bearing just to get this piece of crap in there to put it all together. So you got to be careful on how you do your order, or else you'll end up having to do it over again and again. And the worst thing that could happen is you may end up actually causing yourself pain and suffering because you have to extract the bearing, but then you end up damaging a brand new bearing and your old bearing is already damaged. So now you're screwed. You got to wait. Not fun. So I just wanted you to remember that. I'm going to hammer this bearing in and show you what it looks like. One of the things I'd like to point out on this guy is when I tap the seal end, there's two halves to this guy, right? There's an inside and an outside. That inside, which is over here, I want it to be flush with the surface all the way around. So it's really tricky because you don't have a seal driver. See, that side's actually a little high. I need to tap that in. I left the second piece on right here because what we will do is we will press this whole thing together, and then when it's all set and tapped together, it'll all be the right depth, but it will basically, the seal should be sitting on a ledge in there, and then this will press against that because it can't go nowhere, and that'll press it up onto here, onto this guy. So I'm going to tap this corner down right here. I say corner because it's round, LOL, but I'm going to tap this guy down right here, and then we can put that guy in and put the snap ring on. Okay, so I got this guy together, and I was tapping on the top here, and I realized that I was not getting this seal up high enough for where I wanted it to be. And I was struggling with it, and I said, how am I going to do this? Because I don't have a seal driver or a piece of pipe big enough or long enough or any of that. So I realized I was like, man, I got these rotors sitting right here, and there's a round hole. So These like 2019 Honda Civic rotors are the perfect fit for that seal. So I just put them here and then tapped on it, and there you go. So I just thought that was a fun fact I wanted to show you. But anyway, so now this guy's gonna go to right here like this. Just like so. I might need two hands for this, so I might have to come back, but. All right, so now that I got this thing gap closed, I shoved it in. I had to tap on it a little bit here to get that snap ring on right there. Once I got that on, I just smacked right with the extension right on the edge of the bearing there to make sure it was seated still. This one up here, you can still see it's touching on the landing. Then this bearing up here was being a you-know-what, and what I ended up finding was it had walked out, but I couldn't get, there's, 45-degree angle. I can't really push on anything. So what I ended up doing was I put this new gear on here, this bevel gear. If I can get it out of here, I don't know if I can. Oh, there you go. See, now it just kind of walks in and out. But anyway, I had to get that bearing, this gear on, and what I did was I took this and tapped on the gear face, kind of like on the tip of the shaft there, at a 45-degree angle, and I smacked it with a hammer, and it squared the bearing and dropped it into its groove, and now it's in there. So this guy's in. That's all set. Next up is the last part, which is shim. Or no. We're going to put this bearing in. There you go. Almost there. There you go. That drops in. Those gears mesh. Looks great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this guy in right there. Then I'm going to put this snap ring in. And then I'm going to put that face on right there with some RTV around it. And then we're pretty much done. So here is this guy. This guy. I'm going to probably send this snap ring flying in 3, 2, 1. It's kind of hard to do this snap ring one-handed, but I bet you I could do it because I'm a professional at this, right? I think the key... come on. Okay, so now that snap ring's in, don't worry, it only took a couple tries. We're going to flip this guy over. Wipe some of this table dust off because I'm rubbing on this wood and it's kind of dusting on me. So now what we do is we put this bearing, which is your forward shim for this guy to set the gear lash from there to there. Look how nice that spins. What we're going to do is put this guy right there. And then we are going to coat this guy with RTV, put that guy on, and we're done. Ready to go back to the job site. So now you kind of know what it takes to put this thing together and take it apart. Glad I could help you. Like I said, send me some White Claws. I'm sure there's got to be some way of monetizing, making YouTube videos for people. But anyway, thanks for watching, and on to the next one. Okay, one of the things I want to point out is I put the RTV on the bottom half first and then set the cover down on it. I put it with this little divot down. And then what I did was I got this kind of lined up in the center with that bearing in that pocket. Gave it a couple love taps, got a couple corners of bolts in, and then I kind of tapped on it some more times with the hammer and then started to snug the bolts in a cross-tightening pattern. So here, 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 right? And I cross-tightened them, and then it kind of popped and then set square and then sit right inside. And now you can see it all works. That's it, folks. Just wanted to point that out. So then I just tighten these down with an impact driver. They're going to be plenty tight. So ready to go to the customer. And here we are again. So we are back with the tractor. We got this hub all done, right? It's just sitting right here. We're going to go throw this on. It's pretty simple. We're just going to end up pre-filling that hub with some oil. And then we are going to wipe the surface down, slide it on, put the 4 bolts in, put this top knuckle on, and she's going to be ready for service again. The other side looks pretty dry, so I'm not too worried about it, but I am going to check its play in the bearing to make sure the wheel doesn't go like this, just because I don't want to have a leak there. But unfortunately, you know, with the use of the tractor and the age, unfortunately it may be needed to do that side also pretty soon. But okay, I'm gonna get some tools out, I'm gonna get these parts out. I want to say that there is kind of a debate about using things like high guard, low viscosity hydraulic oil, or universal tractor fluid, that kind of stuff, Napa tractor supply stuff, or gear oil. Some of the older most of the older tractors, they used 80-90 gear oil in the axle and the hubs, but it's thick as molasses and it's super slow to fill in. And in the newer models, they actually use hydraulic oil like this. So I don't think there's really anything's better than nothing at this point, especially with the age of the tractor. I'm not too concerned about it. I'm going to use this. What I'll do is I'll pre-fill this hub at least probably up to about here, put it all on, and then fill the axle tube itself, and then that'll drain to one side. I'll actually pull the plug on the other and drain it, so that can drain out, and then fill the tube up so that it's got good fluid in it, and go from there. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to show you what this looks like. So as you can see, I am pre-filling this hub here. Try to do this one-handed, and you can kind of hear all the air bubbles and stuff coming out as it's going from this hub down into this lower section through these bearings and stuff. Well, those spaces are actually pretty tight, those, you know, between the bearings and stuff. And you would fill this with 80-90 gear oil, and it would just sit there, and it would never move. It would take like an hour for it to just get in there, just one little gloop at a time. That's another reason why it's kind of tough to do 80-90 gear oil. And actually, I think I overfilled this guy anyway. See, now it's not going down at all. So that's good. Nice, look at that beautiful, beautiful mechanical contraption. Yes, yes. Oh, she's still going down, just very slowly. But anyway, okay, so now I got this. I'm going to go take it over there. I'm going to go put it up on the, don't forget your O-ring here, or else the axle is going to leak everywhere. We don't want to do that. So I want to point out, we wiped down this surface. I got a bolt started here just so it's ready. This doesn't matter as much as this 45-degree bevel, because that's where the O-ring sits. That's clean, it's wiped off. And so now I'm going to use two hands. Try to get this guy over here. And obviously, as I tip this up, it's going to leak out. So I'm going to grab an oil pan real quick and clean up my mess before I make too big of a mess. Oops. Okay, one of the tricks here, now that I got the other hub drained, right, I pulled the plug out, drained it out. Now what I did is I kind of leveled this thing out. I actually need to level it a little better, but I need to get this funnel in to this plug. Now, the trick here is when you put your funnel into the hole, do not put it into where this is tight on this, because then you'll airlock it and it'll gurgle bubbles up through the funnel and block, and it'll make a huge mess. So I have it kind of 45-degree angle, and there's air gaps around the funnel tip. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower that jack stand and let this lean down just a hair more. The tire's on that side, so that's the heavy side anyway. So let's do that real quick. I don't know if I can do this one-handed, but I guess we'll find out. Just come down like this. There you go. That's maybe one more notch. I want it to be slightly this way to fill this hub first, and then it'll fill the tube, and then that'll be where the dipstick is actually the high point. And then when we put it on the ground, we can check the dipstick more accurately. Okay, so we're still in. I'm gonna keep on pouring oil in. kind of actually bubbling over there. But it's going to take time to fill that hub and drain down. So even though it comes up, it's going to start going down. I think we're probably good enough for today on this guy. Now I'm gonna go put the tire on and then set it on the ground. So she's all together, she's on the ground. All the lug nuts are on. It's all full of oil. And we're ready to go home. Just as a recap. There's your spindle, buds. Broken off. Well, thanks for watching, guys.